What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Living Man channel, where I talk to you about how I live my American dream. So this is a follow-up video to another video I did, and I'll link it up somewhere over here. It was called How to Be a Man. And at the end of that video, I talked about how we need to allow men to be vulnerable. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Men and vulnerability. Now, these are two words that we normally don't hear in one sentence. I will tell you, I've been in the Marine Corps 22 years. If you've seen my videos before, you know I've been in the Marine Corps for a long time, or, somewhat of a long time. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody in my community in the Marine Corps talk about men and vulnerability. It's just not something that is discussed. It's not something that's thought about. It's just not a part of our institution. Marines are supposed to be big, tough war fighters, run to the sound of battle, run to the sound of gunfire, just big, bad people, right? Mofos. But because of that, there's they call it toxic masculinity. I didn't know this term for a long time. So the way that I understand it now is, because we have this idea of how a man needs to be, we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable. We don't allow, not just ourselves, but we don't allow other men to be vulnerable. And because of that, when we experience trauma, we can't cope with it in a healthy way, in a healthy manner. For example, we say men don't cry. But sometimes you need to cry. Sometimes that's the only way to get the pain out. Sometimes that's the only way to express what's going on inside you. Again, I didn't know this for a long time. I figured out after my divorce and trying to deal with the pain while still being a Marine. And on the outside, there may be Marines who watch this video who will be surprised to learn that for a couple years, I was struggling. And I say they'll be surprised because on the outside looking in, I was fine. I was going to work. I was doing very good at my job, got promoted. I was doing all the things that I needed to do to keep my life going. But on the inside, there was a lot of turmoil going on. There was a lot of internal crying going on, sometimes external, when I couldn't keep it in. But nobody ever saw that. I didn't want anybody to see that because in my mind, in my head, doing so would make me seem weak. Doing so would make others think of me as weak. And as a man, as a Marine, that was just unacceptable because men don't show weakness. Marines don't show weakness. So I couldn't do that. Marines don't show fear. Why would I be afraid of losing my son just because he's in another country? No. Marines figure it out. Men figure it out. Men make things happen. And so I had this idea that that's how it needed to be. And I had to accept that, hey, maybe there's another way. Maybe there's something that I haven't thought about that can help me get through the situation. And that came down to vulnerability. If you've heard of Brene Brown, she talks about vulnerability a lot. And she talks about it in relation to leadership. Again, in the Marine Corps, we don't talk about leadership and vulnerability. But I've come to learn that for me to be a better leader, I have to be willing to be vulnerable. I'm not saying everybody has to be vulnerable. I've met plenty of leaders here in the Marine Corps especially, that are great leaders who I've never seen be vulnerable. So I'm not saying you have to be vulnerable, but I think it helps. For me to help other Marines cope with their trauma, to hopefully avoid the dangers of PTSD, I have to show them that it's okay to reach out and ask for help, that it's okay to feel down and out sometimes, that it's okay to accept help when it's offered, that it's okay to do all the things that society has told us for so long is not okay. Society says men overcome, men adapt, men are strong, men don't give in. But society's wrong. Even as I say that now, it's, like my skin feels like it's tingling, like what the hell am I saying? But I'm telling you, society's wrong. Men are not built to be these big, strong machines. Now we can be, but guess what? So can women. A single mother working 2 jobs to take care of her children because maybe she got divorced, maybe her significant other passed away, whatever the case may be. single mother with 3 children. One of them is handicapped in some way. Has to be very strong to deal with that situation. A woman who's disabled in some way has to be strong to carry on with her life. So strength is not just something that applies to men. It applies to all of us. So when we say men overcome, men don't cry, men can't show weakness, it's all BS. Society is full of crap. And we need to accept that and stop thinking that only women can cry, that only women can show emotion, that only women can be vulnerable. Because by saying that, we're not allowing men to do that in their roles as men, in their role as leaders. And really what we're doing is we're holding them back from giving us their very best, from exploiting their full potential as adult, mature men. Because guess what? Men have feelings too. Now we're told we can't show those feelings, but just because we can't show them doesn't mean we don't have feelings. We have feelings. I have feelings. These last 2 years dealing with COVID, there's a lot of things that went right for me. And I'll talk about that in some other videos. There's a lot of things that went right for me because of the turmoil that the world has been under, especially financially. But there's a lot of things that have not gone so well for me in the last 2 years. And I'll share some of those in the other videos so you can see that, as I talk about living the American dream, yes, I feel like I'm living the American dream, but my life's not perfect. I too feel pain. I too feel heartache. I too deal with trauma that sometimes brings me down to my knees. So no, men do not need to hide their feelings. Men have feelings and they need to show them. If we do that, maybe we'll help men deal with things like depression, PTSD, anxiety, just a little bit better, so that they don't feel like they have to commit suicide. They don't feel like they're at the end of the rope and they have to give up. We have to show men that it's okay to cry. I'm not saying everybody should just be crying all the time about every little thing. No. There's a balance. With emotional maturity, you find that balance. But emotional maturity doesn't mean you never cry. It just means you know when it's appropriate to cry. And that you're comfortable, you're okay with crying. Because at the end of the day, if we can teach men, and really just adults in general, how to be emotionally mature enough to be vulnerable when it's appropriate, we're making the world a better place. We're not making the world a better place by saying men need to be strong and women can be the warm, loving, emotional beings. That's not making the world a better place. Some of you will argue that I'm wrong and may say the gender roles that we had in the past is what we need to do. And if you disagree, drop a comment in the comment section. I would love to hear your opinion. I do not claim to know it all. I know I don't know it all. I'm still trying to figure out this whole life thing. I'm trying to figure out who I am as a parent, as a leader, as a husband. I'm still lost in the sauce and have the stuff that I do, but I'm trying to figure it out. So if you disagree with something I'm saying, drop a comment. I want to hear what you've got to say. We can talk about it maturely, respectfully, but drop a comment because I really want to know. Because I sincerely believe if we learn vulnerability at a young age and carry it forward to adulthood, we can make the world a better place. A lot of the division that has been going on in the last few years, in my opinion, is because people are clashing because they want to argue with each other and they don't want to accept that they're wrong. And I'm not pointing fingers on one side or the other, whether you're left, right, Democratic, Republican, liberal, conservative, whatever the case may be. I'm not pointing fingers to the one. Everybody's doing it. Whatever side you're on, everybody's doing it. Because we don't want to accept we're wrong. Because to accept we're wrong is to be vulnerable, is to say, I don't know what I'm doing either. I don't know if the COVID shot is the right thing to do. I don't know if this disease was created or if it was or if it wasn't. I don't know any of this. I know what the news tells me. I know this. I have an opinion about things, but I don't really know. And saying that takes vulnerability. For a politician to get up in front of the television and say, hey, America, I'm sorry. We planned to do this, completely failed. I take full ownership of it. That takes vulnerability. But the problem is that when somebody tries to be vulnerable, especially when they're in a leadership position, the higher it is, the worse it gets. Everybody attacks them. Everybody says, oh my God, I can't believe you did this. How could you mess that up? You know, whether it's police officers, military, politicians, CEOs, executives, whatever the case may be, people always want to attack someone when they make a mistake. So of course, if you're worried that you're going to be attacked because you made a mistake or because you were vulnerable or whatever the case may be, then you're not going to want to be vulnerable. We have to be a little bit more forgiving. We have to be a little bit more accepting of others. Only then can people feel comfortable being vulnerable, especially the people, such as the men, that were telling you have to be strong. Yes, I believe we do have to be strong. I also think women need to be strong. But we can't be strong and not be vulnerable. I think that the balance is what makes you stronger. All right, guys. That's all I'm going to leave you with. Hopefully you got something out of this video. Again, if you disagree with anything I say, or even if you agree, drop a comment. I want to hear what you got to say. If you like what you see, hit that like button. If you want to see more videos, subscribe so you get notified when I upload another one. See you in the next video. Deuces.